Hello, guys. So today we continued, we started talking about proportional relationships and reviewing kind of what they look like in table form, graph form, and some of my classes got to equation form. But if this class did not get to equation form, then we will continue equations tomorrow before our main lesson. Now, this video does include the equation form, but our main focus is looking at how the graphs work because all of these graphs almost look the same, except these numbers are different. Okay. So first thing we want to talk about and review are the equations. So y equals 2.5x. The number in front of x is the slope of the line. The number in front of x is the slope of the line. Now, the slope is more difficult to find in these graphs than what we are used to. So if I'm looking at A here, and I want to find my slope by drawing my slope triangle. I have a pretty point here, and I have a pretty point here, okay? So if I draw my slope triangle in red, maybe I should, can I make this darker or bolder? Yes, I can. Here's my slope triangle in red. What you guys are used to is just counting the boxes. So this is going up 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going over 1, 2, 3. That is okay for an example like A, because the height here from 0 to 4 is actually 4. And from 0 to 3 is actually 3. But that's not going to work on all of them. So if our height here is 4, our base here is 3, that means that we have a height of 4/3. So I want to look for which of these equations has a slope of 4/3, and that is this one here, y equals 4/3 x. So let's look at one that's not as easy to identify. This one here, I can find my pretty points and draw my slope triangle. So I can go up here and then over here. It looks like we went up 1 and then over 1, except for the fact that that is not what our numbers on the x and y axis are saying. And that's the biggest thing with our lesson for tomorrow is paying attention to the numbers on the x-axis and y-axis. So if I'm going up, if I'm looking at the height or the vertical distance of this triangle, I'm going from 0 to 10. So 0 to 10 is a height of 10. If I'm looking at my base or my horizontal distance, I'm going from 0 to 4. So the horizontal distance from 0 to 4 is 4. So I actually want to look at this as 10 over 4, not 1 over 1. So 10 over 4, what does that simplify to? So 10 over 4 is simplifies down to 5 over 2. Or if I'm looking at the decimal version, if I put 5 over 2 in a calculator, that would give me 2.5. So the slope of this line is 2.5. So C goes to this equation where the slope is 2.5. Okay, I'm looking at E. Again, I'm drawing my slope triangle. So I've got a pretty point here, and I have a pretty point all the way over here. So I am drawing my slope triangle. The vertical up and down distance here is 0 to 400. I'm doing 0 to 400. And my horizontal distance going side to side is 0 to 300. So I am doing 400 over 300. And if I simplify that, I cross out my zeros, divide 400 and 300 by 100, and that gives me a slope of 4 over 3. So the slope for this one is 4/3. Okay, now we're looking at B. Again, I'm finding pretty points. I've got pretty points all over this line. Let's go ahead and and draw our slope triangle. Again, it does not matter which pretty points you choose. You could choose any of these pretty points to do your slope triangle for. Hello, my line. Choose any of these pretty points here. I'm going to focus on the smaller triangle though, just because that's going to be a little bit easier. So my vertical distance or my height of this triangle is going to be from 0 to 2. I'm starting at 0 going up to 2. That is a vertical distance of 2. My horizontal distance from 0 to 8 is 8. So if I want to do my vertical divided by my horizontal, that is 2 over 8. And 2 over 8, I can divide them both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that simplifies to 1/4. So the slope of this line is 1/4. It looks like the slope is 1, but you have to pay attention to how the x and the y axis is scaled. The x-axis is going up by 8s, the y-axis is going up by 2s. So you can't just count the squares there. This has a slope of 1/4. And our last one. Card D, again, starting at 0, 0. Notice that all of these cards are proportional. We're focused on just proportional ones tomorrow. So I've got a pretty point here, and I have a pretty point right here. Now, this is a pretty point, even though we have 0.5, we don't have a whole number. So if we want to do a whole number, if we're like, I don't want to do 0.5, we can find a pretty point that actually is a whole number. I can go all the way up to 1 and go over to 4 here. So I'm going from 0 to 1 is a height or a vertical distance of 1. And if I'm looking at my horizontal distance, starting at 0, going over to 4, that is a horizontal distance of 4. So 1 over 4 is my slope. 1 over 4 is my slope here. So this is going to go into the column y equals 1/4 x. So your entrance ticket tomorrow is going to focus on, I'm going to have you finding a couple of points on the line with a different scale, and I'm going to have you find the slope of a line with a different scale. So I really, really, really want you guys to focus on how the graphs are scaled. If you guys have any questions, like always, just let me know.